All right, welcome. This is week 3, lesson 3. You have made it a quarter of the way through the program, and this is our last lesson for this week. And we're going to talk a lot about mindfulness today, which I really love. I think mindfulness is such a great coping technique. It's probably one of the, if not the most useful coping mechanism I've ever learned. So anyway, let's get started here. And let's talk a little bit about what mindfulness actually is, right? You've probably heard it a lot, but it's not just a trendy buzzword. It's a very powerful evidence-based tool for reducing inflammation, calming the nervous system, and supporting emotional resilience. So for those of us living with autoimmune illness, mindfulness offers a gentle way to reconnect with our bodies and reduce symptom severity and approach our experience with compassion instead of frustration. So mindfulness, basically, it just means bringing your full attention to the present moment with openness and curiosity. So it's not about clearing your mind, right? I think a lot of people kind of confuse it with meditation. Not about that, not about clearing your thoughts or achieving perfect peace or zen. Instead, it's just about learning to stay with yourself, even when things feel uncomfortable and kind of chaotic. So mindfulness is noticing without judgment what is happening inside and around you. So, research shows that regular mindfulness practice reduces pro inflammatory cytokines like the IL-6 and the TNF alpha, which is not super important that you know the names of those things. But basically, they are just chemicals that are often really elevated in people with autoimmune conditions. So, mindfulness can also really help to improve the vagal tone, and it reduces cortisol, and really helps to bring the immune system back into balance. So, again, these are not things that I'm just making up. There's research to support this. So again, it is a very powerful tool in being able to eliminate, or at the very least, really make your symptoms much more manageable. So it is not a quick fix, right? It's a skill, something that you have to practice over time. But as you do that, mindfulness certainly works to lower the body's baseline of stress and emotional dysregulation. Okay, so being mindful doesn't mean that you're pretending that everything's okay and it's all sunshine and rainbows, or that you're avoiding hard feelings. It means being with what is in a grounded and supportive way, right? And that what is can be whatever it is. So, in fact, mindfulness, it actually creates more room for us to feel things that are uncomfortable, like grief or anger or overwhelm, without those emotions hijacking us. So it allows us to hold pain with presence and not push it away, right? And we talked about when we push emotions away in our last lesson, how detrimental that is to our nervous system and causing more inflammation in the body. So when you're practicing mindfulness, especially in the context of trauma and chronic illness, safety and choice must come first. So many of us have had our bodies feel unsafe or out of control. You might be feeling that way right now. That might be a lot of what prompted you to join this community. So rather than forcing stillness or silence, we can use mindfulness to create a therapeutic space where you have full agency, right? You always have the right to pause, to change positions, to shift your focus, right? Or to just stop the practice entirely. And this helps to prevent that feeling of overwhelm and re-traumatization. So we use somatic grounding tools like the ones we've talked about with breath or posture, or just noticing, your feet on the floor to help anchor you in the present. And these body-based grounding techniques really help shift your nervous system from activation to regulation. So even simple practices like what we've practiced with placing a hand on your heart or deep breathing, right, can be really powerful cues of safety. And this mindfulness is just another tool to put in that toolkit. And you can actually practice mindfulness while you're doing those things, just practicing the deep breathing and mindfulness, what you're feeling in that moment. So this approach reduces trauma-linked reactivity. And many trauma survivors do live in a state of hyperarousal or the opposite, kind of the numbness and the shutdown. So mindfulness, when practiced with somatic safety and choice, helps to interrupt those patterns very gently. And over time, you will see that your system learns that being present, right, being connected in your body, being present in your body, can be safe again. It feels okay to do that. So let's try a brief exercise together. You can, if you're sitting, just get comfy. If you want to lay on the floor, you can do this because you'll be able to hear me. But just make sure your body feels supported. And then we're just going to take a moment to bring awareness to our breath. No need to change it, just however you feel like breathing normally. Don't have to count or anything like that, just normal breaths. And then gently name what you are feeling right now, right? As you're just bringing that awareness to your breath and whatever you're feeling. No wrong answers here. Maybe you're feeling relaxed. Maybe you're feeling supported being here in this community. Maybe you're feeling sad. Maybe you've had a bad day and you're feeling hurt or angry, right? Just whatever is there, just be present with it. And now notice where that feeling lives in your body, right? Where do you feel that sense of relaxation or tiredness or hurt, right? Notice where it is in your body, and then just slowly take 3 slow, steady breaths. Again, don't have to count, just do it at your own pace, right? I'm going to do one more. Great. And as you are exhaling there on that last breath, just want you to think about releasing that tension, right? And you can do it again if you need to, but just breathe in, really breathing out anything that doesn't feel good, that you don't want to keep inside, and just allowing that to come out of you, that energy to move through you. Can you feel that? Do you feel any difference in your body, any difference in the tension? Maybe you move a little bit, just whatever feels right for your body in this moment. So however you experience that, this is mindfulness. You completed a mindfulness exercise. It's very simple. The goal is to just be present, right? To be grounded, to be centered in the moment, and start to reestablish that feeling of safety in your body. You don't have to do this for 30 minutes a day. I mean, if you want to and you can, great. But another thing I really love about this exercise is you can do it anytime, and it doesn't take long, right? We just completed it in less than a minute. And you can do it throughout the day when you're doing normal chores, right? Maybe when you are brushing your teeth tonight, right? Really concentrate on being in that moment. What does that feel like for you with the toothbrush in your hand, right? Maybe you can feel the toothbrush on your teeth, right? And you can feel that you're holding it in your hand. You can smell the toothpaste. You can hear the water running, right? Or maybe you have an electric toothbrush and you can hear that. So kind of connecting with your senses in that moment, just checking in with the body, noticing what you feel, where you feel that in the body. And if anything feels unpleasant, just kind of breathing through that and pushing it through, right? So it's a really helpful exercise. And like I said, you can practice it really anytime. And in fact, the more you do practice it when you're doing kind of mindless things like brushing your teeth, right, or washing the dishes or whatever, the more helpful it is, because it is training your brain for when you do really need to fall back on this skill. You know, when you are in a heightened state of arousal, then your brain's kind of like, oh, I know what we can do in this moment to kind of bring that nervous system down. So yeah, super helpful. I really enjoy those exercises. And, you know, it is these small practices like what we've reviewed even in our previous lessons that are making these big shifts over time. So again, consistency is key, you know, just practicing these techniques every chance that you get. So when symptoms flare, our nervous system often shifts into overdrive, right? Sure, a lot of you know exactly what that feels like. Um, Breath-focused mindfulness really helps to interrupt that cycle. So by simply directing attention to slow and steady breathing, especially extending the exhale, we are again activating that parasympathetic nervous system, which signals safety to our bodies and helps to calm that body's desire to be reactive. This doesn't necessarily fix the flare, right? But it does create a calmer internal environment. And when you're calmer inside, right, as far as what you're feeling, that does help to reduce the inflammation, which certainly contributes to flares. So along with breath, we can practice some somatic body awareness. We've talked a little bit about this before, but just to kind of build on that, this means gently noticing what's happening in the body without judgment. So here we're using a little mindfulness, right? And also that somatic exercising. So for example, checking in and maybe like, I feel heat in my face, right? Or I feel tension in my shoulders, right? Naming sensations instead of resisting them helps ground awareness and can reduce the intensity of both the physical and emotional pain that you might be experiencing in that moment. We call this non-resistance mindfulness, and that is just acknowledging what is there without fighting it, right? It's at the core of mindfulness, just letting it be present. That doesn't mean giving up or liking the symptoms if they're not pleasant. It just means letting go of the struggle against them, which often creates more suffering, right? So even if it's not pleasant, it gets to exist, right? It's acceptance, not approval. So when we soften into awareness instead of bracing against it or pushing against it, we start to reduce what is called secondary distress, which is the emotional tension that makes the physical pain feel even worse, right? A lot of us might get caught in that loop. You feel something distressing, you don't like that, right? You wish it wasn't there. It makes you feel bad that you're feeling it. And then that's that secondary distress. You're causing yourself more suffering and mental distress because you are kind of bracing against what you're feeling. So this is about just letting it be present. And that approach really helps us be able to stay connected to our body, even in discomfort, without increasing our sense of fear or overwhelm. So it is a skill and it does take practice, but it is hugely, hugely effective and empowering. Speaking of empowering, one of the most empowering aspects of mindfulness is learning how to recognize your body's limits before it crashes. And this is so key for those of us with autoimmune illness, right? So for many women with autoimmune disease, it is really easy to miss the early signs of fatigue or tension, especially if you've learned to just kind of override those symptoms or ignore them just to push through and get through the day. So Mindfulness can really help bring those subtle cues back into focus. And by practicing gentle somatic check-ins like a brief body scan, or just asking yourself, where am I holding tension? You begin to notice shifts in your energy. And this awareness helps you to regulate in real time instead of only responding when symptoms spike, right? It is much easier to catch things when they're at a 2 or 3, right, than when they're at an 8 or 9. This also supports something called activity rest balance. So rather than pushing through or collapsing, you can begin to pace yourself with intention. Attuning to these signals doesn't mean you're giving up. It means that you are protecting your capacity and supporting your immune system with restorative pauses instead of stress-induced exhaustion. And that is how we begin to work with the body and not against it. So just be mindful of, as you're moving through these exercises, if something gets to feel too heavy, like, it's okay to rest. It's okay to practice until you get to a point that it feels like too much, right? And then that piece is important too, that you're listening to your body and you take a break. One of the most valuable things mindfulness offers is the ability to process emotions without escalating them. So when we're mindful, we learn to observe emotions without immediately reacting. And that neutral awareness gives us space to feel what is there, right? Whether it's grief or fear or anger, we can experience it without letting it take over and hijack us. So instead of amplifying stress, we create a buffer of acceptance and presence, right? And again, acceptance is not approval, right? It's okay if you don't like feeling this way, but it's much more effective to allow that feeling to be present and accept it than to kind of buck against it, right? Or suppress it down. So when emotions feel big or overwhelming, we come back to the body, and this is where the somatic grounding comes in again, right? Sensations like the breath moving through your chest, or feeling your feet planted on the floor, or even your spine supported by a chair. All those things can anchor your awareness and send your nervous system a very simple but powerful message of, I'm here and I'm safe right now, right? And that is so key, just to be here and safe. So if you notice that you are moving towards a feeling of shutdown or panic, use these techniques to just gently kind of return to safety, right? The slow, steady breathing, especially really extending that exhale, body scanning to notice where you're holding tension, softening one small part of the body at a time, right? Just kind of doing a body scan, right? It's amazing to me. I do this a lot when I'm trying to sleep, of just starting at my toes, right? And moving up to my feet and my ankles and my calves and my knees and thighs and all the way up, right? And just at each part, releasing tension and being really mindful of that. And even when I think I'm very relaxed, I almost always get to some part of my body and there's tension there. A lot of times in my shoulders, or in my face, or even in my tongue, right? So just practice that, that body scan, and just releasing tension throughout the body, just softening each of those body parts. These are all small actions in theory, but they create the conditions for emotional regulation and nervous system stability, which are key components, in reducing autoimmune reactivity and emotional exhaustion. So mindfulness doesn't have to happen in silence or on a cushion. Some of the most powerful practices happen in the flow of everyday life. Through movement, when you're eating, right? Small transitions that fill our day up, like we were just talking about. you can do it anytime. Do it when you're driving. Do it when you're even having a conversation with someone, right? Just being present in that moment. I'm here and I'm focused on being here with this person. Walking is a great way to do it. Mindful walking, whether you are moving across the room or going outside for a walk, just try to notice each footstep. What does that feel like with the ground beneath you, or maybe you're on carpet, right? Noticing your breath and take in your surroundings, right? Especially if you're outside. What can you see? What can you hear? What's the temperature like, right? This simple practice reconnects your body and mind through present movement awareness. I mean, again, we are trying to establish safety and orientation in the now, right? So this is such a great exercise for doing that. Do it when you're eating. Mindful eating is great. In fact, this is one that I really try to practice regularly because a lot of times I'm busy in clinic and I'm rushing to eat. And, not only is that really not healthy or safe, but it leaves me feeling distracted and frustrated, So taking a moment to not rush through meals, just slowing down and truly tasting each bite, right? And noticing the texture and the temperature and the aroma and what it feels like to be nourishing my body and kind of taking a break. That mindful eating not only improves your digestion, which is a huge important component, but it also fosters appreciation and trust in your body and kindness towards your body. Another great kind of off ramp of mindfulness is considering breath pauses before tasks. So before you open your inbox or you go to answer a text or start a chore around the house, just pause for one slow breath, just one. Just really deep in and out, right? And this tiny moment of intentional presence can really do wonders to help reduce stress buildup and bring a sense of calmness into the spaces where you are normally rushing through, right? We deal with stress all day, every day that we're not even aware of, right? Oh, I've got to respond to this email. I've got to make this phone call, right? So just these micro practices, again, they might seem small, but done consistently over time, they create a nervous system environment that supports your healing and your clarity and a deeper connection with your body, which in turn helps to decrease and or alleviate your symptoms of autoimmune disease. And that's why we're here, right? So consistency is key, right? Mindfulness is not about getting it right. It's about building a relationship with yourself that is rooted in patience and presence. So again, even one breath, one pause, one moment of awareness is enough to start shifting your biology and your relationship with your body. So practice daily in small ways over time, and I promise you, these practices will become a vital part of your healing rhythm. So as always, there is a worksheet. It's focused on mindfulness. There's also a mindfulness exercise that's in the curriculum this week, and we'll kind of walk you through how you can do that at home and practice. So really encourage you to print them out or fill them out, however you want to do that. And then I will look forward to seeing you in our next lesson, which is going to be week 4, lesson 1. So see you soon.